Hello everyone and welcome back to another tutorial. Today we are going to be looking at how to create a level loader inside of your game. We're going to be using our scriptable objects that we've learned in previous tutorials. We're going to be using our player prefs that we've learned in previous tutorials. And we're also going to be using a simple pixel UI. That is a free asset from the asset store. I'll put a link to the description below. But because I'm going to be talking through the code and I've actually already produced all of this, I'm going to package this project up and upload it to probably Google Drive. And I'll put a link to the description there as well where you're able to download it. You can follow along. You can just use the code for whatever you'd like. You can pick it to pieces, all of that. It's great. So let's take a look at what this does quickly. If I launch my game, I can see that I have a username. My name is Flarvain. I have a max level of 1, I have a high score of 0, and I have some panels which contain some levels. These levels have some information, a description about them. It's a little mini story if you're interested in reading it. I had a bit of fun making it, and a difficulty assigned to them as well. Now this is all just metadata for now, but the interactable part is the button here at the bottom. So all of the buttons at the start are set to uninteractable. So you can see here I can't interact with any of these except for the first level. So I can click start on this level. I can score some points. I can choose to complete the level. And then my max level now goes to 2. I've also got a high score now of 5 points. And I can now also click level 2 to start. If I join level 2, I can score some points and I can fail the level. And you can see here that my high score did go up to 9, but my level has stayed at 2. So if this is something that interests you, please take a second to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell because I'm trying to do these videos once a week. And without further ado, let's get into it. So as I said before, this project is based off of a shop tutorial that I've done previously. You can see we have the similar item template, which holds the information about the level. You can see that this also has a script on it called level panel that has a reference to the level text, description, and difficulty. We have our scriptable objects. This here holds the information about our level, description, and difficulty as well. And also we've got a cool little script that loads these panels in when at runtime. And it only loads the number of levels that we have. So you can see in here, I've got 7 levels. However, inside of here, I actually have 15 game objects. So I can just quickly expand this, start this, and you can see that I've actually got a whole lot more that are just not filled out. So how does this project actually function? Well, we've built it upon 4 scripts. We've got our level scriptable object. This allows us to create new scriptable objects for different levels and store their information. We've got our level panel. This is a reference on our panel template that allows us to assign the text of level, description, and difficulty. We've got our game manager. This is really what brings everything together. It holds the loading and saving logic as well as the ability to change scenes. And then finally, we have our points script. The points script is quite a simple one. It just allows us to increase the number of points that we have, adding to our high score. It also allows us to increase our max level, and it allows us to complete or fail a level as well. So the first script that we've got is our level scriptable object. Now inside of here, if you've seen a previous tutorial I've done on this, I've explained this a bit more in depth, but we'll cover it very quickly. It derives from scriptable object. It creates its own asset menu path, and it holds 3 variables, an int for a level, string for description, string for difficulty. And as you've seen before, this allows us to go in, right-click, create scriptable object, and create a new level. I can then create this blank one. Let's say I call it level 12, just because I'm going to delete it. The level here would be 12, and the description here would be something about the level. And finally, our difficulty could be anything from medium, easy, hard, etc. Now, where does this information go? Well, that is where our level panel comes in. So this level panel here, it uses TM Pro to allow it to access all these TMP texts. This is just Unity's new text editor. And here we've got a text for our level, our description, and our difficulty. If you're familiar with my videos, I always add this txt on the end for a text element, so I know when I'm coding which element I'm working with. Now inside of here, that is attached to my item templates. And you can see in my item templates, I've just dragged in the title, the description, and the difficulty. And finally, there's a start button as well. Now let's take a look at our game manager. As I said before, the game manager really pulls the project together. It allows it to interact with different scripts and allows us to change scenes, allows us to save, it allows us to load, and it starts the game off for us. So if you're familiar with my shop tutorial, this is effectively the shop manager. You'll notice quite a lot of similarity here where I'm creating an array of scriptable objects, an array of game objects for the level panels, and an array of level panel scripts as well. And finally, an array of my level buttons. Just flicking quickly to the game manager, that is effectively dragging in all of my game objects for my level panels, dragging in it again here to get the scripts, and dragging in my scriptable object list that I've got here for each of my levels. I'm going to delete that level 12 quickly as well so I don't make a mistake. Other than that, I've got a string that stores my username, an integer for my max level, an integer for my high score, and then the relative text elements for this as well. So username, max level, and high score again. And then we get into our start function. Our start function here has a for loop at the beginning. This is just setting our panels active to the number of levels that we have. I found this really clean and easy to use. This is that part that when I click play here, it's what loads in these panels here at the bottom. So all it is actually doing is enabling a bunch of game objects. So you'll notice that these ones here are enabled and their default state is disabled. So because I have 7 levels in here, I enable the first 7 game objects in that list, and then I populate them with the data. Then we load in our player data. Now, if you've seen my previous videos, you're already quite familiar with player prefs, but a very high-level rundown is that they are a key value pair where the key is stored as a string, and it pulls back the value that you've stored in it elsewhere. What I'm doing here is I'm checking to see if I already have a key for my max level, and if I do, then I'm grabbing that key and loading it into my max level integer. Otherwise, I'm setting my max level to 1, and then I'm saving that key pair value. After that, I grab the value for my high score. I then set the text elements with the username, max level, and high score to what their respective values are. Finally, we call this load panels function. Now, the load panels function has 2 main purposes. The first part is to load in all of the text from each of the scriptable objects onto the panel. So this is where we use our panel scripts as well as our scriptable objects. And we load in our level text from our level value here, our description text to our description value here, and our difficulty text from our difficulty value. Now, if this code doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense to you, it's quite easy to show it visually. All we're saying here is that these scriptable objects and the information that I've written inside of each of these scriptable objects is going to be put onto the level text, the description text, and the difficulty text. And that's all that does. It loops through and it applies the text to all of that. After that, we have an if statement, which checks to see if my max level is greater than or equal to the current level of the scriptable object I'm looking at. If it is, I want to be setting my level button to interactable. And if it's not, I want to be setting it to false. So this is also quite easy to show here. If I hit play, I can see that my max level is set to 2. Because my max level is 2, I'm checking to see, okay, when I loop through the first time, I'm looking at the scriptable object level 1. I'm greater than 1, therefore I'll set this to interactable. I check number 2, and because I'm greater than or equal to, I also set 2 to interactable. I then check 3, and from then on, I can see that this is not interactable because 2 is obviously less than 3. We then have one other function, and this is attached to each of the level buttons. It's a select level that passes in a parameter called level number. Now, level number is used to change scenes. Now, if you've never seen the Scene Manager class before, you'll need to be importing Unity engine.scene management, and Scene Manager, I'm just going to type it next to it so you can see. Scene Manager has a whole lot of functions inside of it, but one of them is load scene. Now, load scene takes in an integer for the scene build index. The way that Unity manages its scenes is it goes into this build settings area and it looks to see all of the scenes that are available for. And the order that you drag them in is the index that it applies to it. So for example, if I were to delete out scene 7, open up my scenes again and drag in scene 7, it just creates a new one called with the index of 7. And all that we're doing when we load a scene is we're saying we want to be loading based off of this index here. The way that we're controlling that index is quite simply that we're setting each of these panels to their respective number. So we've got the start button for level 1 loads the first level. The start button for level 2 loads the second level, and so on and so on and so on. So all that we're doing when we click this, let's say I was loading level 1, is I would be passing in the number 1 here. I would then go to the scene manager. I would then load scene 1, which in my index will be the first level. It's actually quite nice because indexes start at 0 and my first scene here is the level selector. So if I wanted to go back to the main menu, I would load the index of 0. And you can actually see that in the final script that we've got called points. Now points, the only purpose of points is that this runs on each of the level scenes. And it basically allows me to populate the text here, click the button to increase my points, fail a level, or pass a level. So inside of here, I've got a reference to my high score. I've got a reference to my points, the high score text, that's this points text element here, the max level, and the scene name. We've got 4 functions we're utilizing: our start function, add points, fail level, and pass level. In our start function, we are loading in our high score, and we're then writing that to the text element so that it loads here. We then load in our max level, which we'll be using a bit later, and our scene name, which we'll also be using a little bit later. This scene manager.getActiveScene gets the scene that you're in, and then we just get the name from that. So that comes back as a string, and we just store it directly inside of the string. We then have our add points method. This add points method is used on the score button here, and it's just an on-click function. So each time that button is clicked, we are increasing our points by 1. We're then displaying the new text score, and we're then increasing our high score by 1, and we're then saving down our new high score. So basically all I'm doing is adding a point and then saving it to disk. We then have our fail button. Our fail button is the on-click function for this little fail button here. And all it does is say scene manager, load scene, index of 0. So remember again that build settings, the index here is 0, which means we're going back to our level selector scene. So all we're really saying here is go back to the main menu. And the final method we have in here is the pass level method. So to start this off, we have an if statement to check if the max level is equal to our scene name, keeping in mind that our scene name is actually just the number of the scene that we're on. And our max level is pulled from our max level variable in here. If it is the same, then what we're going to be doing is saying, okay, we've completed a level that we've never completed before. So we're going to increase our max level by 1. We're going to save that down, and then we're going to go back to the main menu. Otherwise, we're just going to go back to the main menu. Now, the reason why this is important, and the reason why this whole if statement is important, is because when I complete a level, and I'm just going to go back to my main scene here, when I complete a level, I want to make sure that I'm only unlocking the next stage if it's a level I've never completed before. So if I have level 2, and I haven't got level 3 unlocked, my current max level is level 2, click start, score some points, and I complete this level, I will unlock level 3 because my max level is now level 3. But what I don't want to have happen is if I choose to do level 2 again, and I complete the level, I don't want to unlock level 4 because I haven't done level 3 yet. So go in, score some points, and complete the level. We can see that I don't unlock level 4, and that's because I haven't done level 3. And that comes purely from this check here to say, am I currently on the level I haven't completed? And if so, then I can increase my max level. Otherwise, let's just go back to the main menu. And that's it. The project is a nice and simple level loader that you can expand upon. You can download the code, dissect it, play around with it, change it in any way that you'd like. And I hope that this tutorial has taught you something. In next week's tutorial, I'm going to be looking at importing 3D models to create a character for yourself and using that as prototyping for your main player of your game. If that sounds interesting to you, please hit that like, subscribe button and the notification bell so you can get my next release. If you have any questions about the tutorial or if you have any comments, please leave them in the comment section below. I see all of them, I reply to all of them, and I really appreciate you guys. See you guys next week. Bye.